Today, many men have wished death upon Alexandre Pantoja, but he just keeps on living, and he keeps on ticking, and he keeps on goating. Also, what about Ian Machado Garry? Did he win more favor with fans than Shavkat? Also, and more importantly, did Bryce Mitchell slam Chrome Gracie right out of the UFC, which is where we want him to be? All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and we are here to go over UFC 310, which went down Saturday night, T-Mobile Arena. You already know. Let's kick it off. We're in the main event. Alexandre Pantoja defended his flyweight championship as he submitted Asakura in the second round. I tried to tell y'all, man. I tried to tell y'all. When a fighter walks to the ring to Many Men Playing in the Background by 50 Cent, why are you betting against the man? You know what I'm saying? Why are you betting against him? Alexandre Pantoja goes out there from the opening bell. Charges right at Asakura, eats a knee flush to the jaw, and did exactly that. Just ate it. Didn't rock him, didn't wobble him, did not detour him. And then from there, he put that pace on Asakura. Now, with that being said, Kai Asakura, shout out to him. The man was fast. I knew he was a fast striker, but his speed was a lot faster than what I thought it was going to be. He seemed to be very accurate. But at the end of the day, man, when you locked in the octagon with a Tasmanian devil like Alexandre Pantoja, what do you expect to do? Like, what you gonna do, man? You could hit that dude in the head with a baseball bat and he's walking right through it. You know what I'm saying? You could hit Alexandre Pantoja with a small Volvo and the homie gonna get right back up and charge right at you throwing hands. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, Alexandre Pantoja puts him away, second round, then gets on the mic, says that he's the real GOAT of the sport, and challenges Demetrious Johnson to come back to the octagon and face him. Now, immediately after on Twitter, Demetrious Johnson shot it down and said that he's already turned down an offer of $2 million to fight, said he's not fighting again, and podcast incoming. So, that's his stance right now. I know he's not in favor of Dana White. So, with that being said, I don't know if the $2 million offer came from UFC or came from somebody else, but at the end of the day, Dana White ain't getting ready to be chasing Demetrious Johnson down to pay him 5, 6, 10 million. You know what I'm saying? That just ain't Dana White's style as it pertains to Demetrious Johnson. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't think we'll ever see that fight, but it is what it is. So, from this point, Pantoja is pretty much getting ready to lap and start fighting guys he's already beaten. And sometimes that just happens until, we get some more stars in the flyweight division. Nevertheless, shout out to Pantoja. Goes out there, gets the win, calls out Demetrious Johnson, which shows you he ain't scared of nothing or nobody. And he moves forward. How about in the co-main event? Shavkat Rachmaninoff goes out in the octagon and defeats, by decision, Ian Machado Garry. Shout out to Ian Machado Garry on this one, because all of this, in my opinion, was a win-win for him. Because Ian Machado Garry ate, a solid shot, a solid punch from Shavkat in the first round and ate it like he was Alexandre Pantoja. You know what I'm saying? Homie just ate it like it was, like it was salsa and chips. It wasn't no big deal for him. You know what I'm saying? the thing about Ian Garry is Ian Garry went out there, and what he did by taking this extremely difficult, extremely hard fight, which he ended up losing, I think he really gained favor in the eyes of a lot of the fans. Fans that dislike him because of, his relationship with his wife and a lot of crazy stuff he said, things he said about Neil Magny and so on and so forth. And it's like, but at the end of the day, the man took the hardest fight he could possibly take in the division outside of fighting Bilal Muhammad. You know what I'm saying? And he goes out there, and he was always a step behind Shavkat, like the whole fight. Like, he was always a step behind Shavkat. But at the same time, in a way, he hung with Shavkat. And then when he got to the point that he took Shavkat's back and almost choked him out, shout out to Ian Machado Garry. His determination for the fight never wavered. He stayed in it. It seemed like he listened to his corner as much as we could decipher what his corner was telling them. Most of them were, speaking Portuguese to him. But bro, shout out to him, man. He did his thing. He survived with Shavkat. He did not get finished. And there were moments when he had Shavkat's back where I was like, is he really about to choke out Shavkat? Like, are we living in a world where Ian Machado Garry is about to choke out Shavkat? With that being said, it was a win-win for him. Now with Shavkat, it wasn't a loss for Shavkat, but I honestly feel like now, I feel the fight between him and Bilal Muhammad is probably about even. To be honest with you, it's probably about even. I really thought that if Shavkat went out there and made short work of Ian Machado Garry, I was looking at this Bilal fight like, Bilal with Bilal's style. Like, Bilal is not a tough guy. He's not a hard fight. But the style that he fights makes him a tough guy. Kind of like fighting Aljamain Sterling. You know what I'm saying? The style that these two have make them tough, but they're not tough fighters, right? So I kind of thought Shavkat was going to be able to have his way with Bilal. But after seeing this and after seeing Ian Garry, take his back and almost choke him out, unless it comes out that Shavkat had some sort of an injury or illness, because he seemed like he was always a step ahead of Garry, but at the same time, he didn't seem like he had that gear that the Shavkat that we've watched on his rise to fight for the title always possessed. He didn't seem like he had that gear. And I don't know if he was a little bit worried about, man, I cannot lose this fight. I already had the title shot ready for me. I chose to go in here with Ian Garry. I cannot lose this. So I don't know if he was really trying to pace himself in a way and make sure he made no mistakes so he could not take that L, or what was going on, because he didn't seem to throw caution to the wind as we've seen other Shavkat fights. But with that being said, he does go out there and get the win. And now that I've saw this fight, I feel like in a way that fight between him and Bilal Muhammad is going to be extremely close. I would still give Shavkat the edge, but just slightly. Whereas prior to seeing this Ian Machado Garry fight, I thought Shavkat was going to have his way with him. But now I think that fight, I think Shavkat still pulls it off, but I think that's a dead even fight now. Because if Bilal takes your back, Bilal, if Bilal gets your back and he has you that close to a rear naked choke, Bilal gonna put you away. You know what I'm saying? So I can't wait to see that fight now, honestly, because I think that fight is a lot closer than what I saw before I saw this Ian Machado Garry fight. Nevertheless, Shavkat goes out there and gets the win. How about a robbery? How about a real robbery? How about a man put on a ski mask, ran in, and held everybody up in T-Mobile Arena? We talking about Cyril Gane donned a ski mask and goes out there and steals one from Drago. I don't know what to say. I mean, Alexander Volkov, I hope he went to the authorities, and I hope he's pressing charges against Cyril Gane, because Cyril Gane donned the ski mask. He was dressed like the Hamburglar from McDonald's, and he stole one. Because I thought Drago easily won this 2 rounds to 1. And in some cases, you might have been able to give all 3 rounds to Drago. But, 2-1. I don't know what happened. I don't know what fight they saw. You could see the disdain, the shock, the highest level of pistivity that Alexander Volkov was on when they read out the decision. Nevertheless, Ciryl Gane steals one. Ciryl Gane knew that he lost. That's why he took off out of the cage, and his coach had to talk him back into going back in there. That's why shout out to Joe Rogan, who would not let it go and kept pressing the matter that, why did you walk out of the cage? Oh, I would like to say, nah, bump that. Why did you walk out the cage? Like, Joe Rogan knew what was up. Nevertheless, Ciryl Gane steals one. Sad, man. Drago, I thought, had an outstanding performance. Outstanding, man. And commentary spoke about Dana White was speaking to Drago. I have not watched the Dana White post-fight press conference yet, but I hope that they're gonna slide Drago some of that under the table, back room, locker room money, because this is ridiculous. And I hope they still treat Drago as if he won that fight, meaning whatever fight he was about to get, had he won this, still match him up with that person. Let's move on. How about Bryce Mitchell might have finally rid us of Chrome Gracie? Here's the thing. I spoke about this to the build-up to this fight as Bryce Mitchell knocks out Chrome Gracie on the ground after a vicious slam, bounced his head off the cage. Off the floor of the octagon, and then caught him with 2 elbows that literally, he was already lifeless. Those 2 elbows, Chrome Gracie was pretty much lifeless after the slam when he tried to go ahead and pull guard again. Stop pulling guard, Chrome. Like, figure out some other type of tactics. But after he tried to pull guard again, and Bryce was like, just F this, and got his forearm in the right position, and just wham, and slammed him, you know what I'm saying? Like a WWE spine buster, if you know what that is. Bro. And then caught him with 2 elbows after his body was already lifeless. Those 2 elbows, one sent him to Hades, and the other one to hell. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, let's be done with Chrome Gracie. And this is what I've seen like a lot of people, on YouTube talk about, why is Chrome Gracie getting a fight against a ranked opponent? Somebody else should get that. Look, bro, this was clearly UFC matchmakers. They gave Chrome Gracie this fight. Everybody's trying to say they did, they're doing Chrome Gracie a favor because they're giving him a fight against a ranked opponent. Why does he get one? Nah, y'all looking at the right way. They did Bryce Mitchell a favor after this horrendous knockout that he just experienced in his last fight where his toes was curled up and his body, it was bad. A lot of people thought the man died in an octagon. They did Bryce a favor. The UFC matchmakers, you got to give them more credit than a lot of people give them. Bro, they knew what Bryce Mitchell was getting ready to do. This was to get Bryce Mitchell. He wasn't getting ready to take no damage. Chrome Gracie's not going to damage anybody. He wasn't going to take no damage, for one, so they didn't have to worry about him getting knocked out. Didn't have to worry about no more concussions or head trauma or anything. And they pretty much knew Bryce Mitchell was going to be able to put that country boy farm strength on Chrome Gracie and power out of any of his submission attempts. Because as I talked about in my pre-fight preview pick of this fight, Chrome Gracie is blatantly trying to fight his way out of his contract so he can probably start going out here and doing some stupid celebrity boxing or, which he's going to get tuned up. Or do like, maybe he's going to try to do like some type of special grappling tournaments or something. I can't imagine there's anything like that he would do the UFC wouldn't allow him to do. But I think he's trying to get out of his UFC contract because he knows he ain't about that life, little bro. You just not about that life. You know what I'm saying? You're not your ancestors. You're not about that life. And it's like, Chrome Gracie, to me, That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get out of his contract. He's trying to go out there and take a L by taking as little damage as possible in a way. And when Bryce Mitchell was just kind of willing to sit on the ground with him in the first round, I think he thought, okay, well, I might be able to shift my weight, move into some positions in the second or third round, and I might be able to submit this cat. And there was a couple of times in the second round where he almost did in a way, but Kron Gracie should be ashamed of himself. I know he don't have a big contract. I know he's not making a ton of money at all. But still, bro, you're not even willing, if you're not going to learn how to strike, you're not even willing to adapt a game plan to get the fight to the ground in a reasonable manner. Reminds me of Mackenzie Dern, but at least Mackenzie Dern has tried to learn how to strike. Kron doesn't even care to even try to learn how to strike. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a true amateur locked in the octagon with a UFC fighter would probably do better on the feet than Kron Gracie. He looks like a regular guy that's untrained, like me, trying to fight a UFC fighter. Like, that's how his striking looks. So it's like, I don't know, bro. But hopefully he got slammed into oblivion and the UFC are just cutting. Get him out of there, bro. You can't keep resting on your name, your last name. Get him out of there. Anyway, shout out to Bryce Mitchell. Shout out to his post-fight speech. It was pretty cool. And his interactions with Joe Rogan. Shout out to him. Let's move on. My guy, Nate Landwehr, took a horrible L. He looked terrible. His stand-up looked terrible. He looked like, I mean, he takes an L against Do-Ho Choi, Superboy, Korean Superboy. Bro, he looked terrible. And it looked like from the opening seconds of the fight when Do-Ho Choi caught him with that tremendous combination that ends with a lead uppercut. Bro. He just kept tuning up the fact that Nate Landwehr, his defense, he covers like this. And he still keeps his head movement, but he covers up like this. Leaves his body open and leaves this spot in the center open for that lead uppercut. And I think he not rocked Nate Landwehr, but rocked that jaw. And Nate Landwehr was like, oh, this Superboy came to play. You know what I'm saying? And, bro, I think after that, Nate Landwehr just could never really get his bearings. He could never find a rhythm. Superboy was tuning this dude up. And when they went to the ground, Superboy was well-versed. He was ready. So, Nate Landwehr takes a horrible loss. I felt sorry for him, but shout out to Do-Ho Choi. He's looking like he's going to definitely for sure be a contender in the division. How about this fight was truly sad? Dominic Reyes goes out there and defeats Anthony Smith. This fight was truly sad because what we saw was a UFC fighter have a nervous breakdown during his fight, during his UFC outing. And it was really sad to see. Now, on my channel, I've waged war against Anthony Smith for a long time. But at the end of the day, those of you all who've been watching my channel, watching my videos, especially this year, you know, I lost somebody really close to me in my family early this year. So my heart goes out to Anthony Smith. You know, he lost his best friend who was also a coach of his, has been in, you know, more than 40 of his 50 fights. You know what I'm saying? So it was bad. He truly had a nervous breakdown. I just want to say, shout out to Anthony Smith. I hope he gets his closure. I hope he's able to get over this hump. But he just should not still be fighting, because, you know, I'm watching the fights on the ESPN Plus app. So sometimes you don't really get to see a lot of the walkouts. So I did not see his walkout because they go to commercial breaks and ads and all of this junk. But when they come back, the commentators are talking about that he literally breaks down crying as he's walking out. And he breaks down crying at the part where the guy would put the little Vaseline on his face and all this stuff. And he was unconsolable while Reyes was walking out and he's with his coach and he's crying. I'm just like, bruh, he should not be in there. Shout out to Anthony Smith because he composed himself. And early in the first round, he was looking all right. I was like, okay, Anthony. As Bruce Buffer was announcing him, he composed himself. And I give all the respect to him in the world. I know I said a lot of bad things about him, but at the end of the day, we all human beings, and this man was going through a breakdown, through a loss. Shout out to Anthony Smith because he composed himself and he had a decent first round. But as Dominic Reyes started to figure him out, you could see all of the composure Anthony Smith had garnered as Bruce Buffer was announcing him. As the fight started to not go his way, you could see the weight of the loss of his best friend wash over him. And could never get out of that. And that was all she wrote. And to the point that he's just walking up, hands down, no guard, yelling at Dominic Reyes to hit him. And even DC called that out. It's like the physical pain, he wants to feel that more than the emotional or the mental pain. This was tough to watch. It was tough to see. It was tough to see how it ended. And I think that he did the right thing by, I know he didn't truly say that he retired, but I think he did the right thing by taking his gloves off and just leave it like that, bro. And if someday you're able to make it back in for another fight, let them match you up again against a guy that you really got a chance with. Not that he didn't have a chance with Reyes, but shout out to Anthony Smith, man. Shout out. I know this is inverted, so it looks like I'm doing it the wrong hand, but shout out to him, man. I hope he gets over his loss. And, more power to him. Shout out to Dominic Reyes. You could tell Reyes did not want to finish this dude. He was trying to, but Reyes could have put more mustard and more sting on those elbows. But you could tell he's just like, bro, I don't want to do this man like this. So, shout out to both men. Dominic Reyes goes out there and gets the win. How about Vicente Luque? Vicente Luque wins Performance of the Night as he goes out there. Also, I'd like to mention Alexandre Pantoja won Performance of the Night as well. I didn't say that earlier. He wins Performance of the Night as he darces the Darce Knight, chokes out Timba Garimbo. Shout out to Vicente Luque. He's back in the win column. Good for him, man. After that brain injury he sustained, it's good to see him back at it. How about Movsar Evelev stepping in there with Aljamain Sterling and gets the win by unanimous decision? Man, all up until the third round, this fight played out exactly how I thought it was going to play out, and that's why I chose Aljamain Sterling to win. I felt like Aljo won round one. I felt like Aljo won most of round two, but I would have gave Evelev round two. Round three, I think Aljamain was doing his thing, man. I think Aljamain had that fight in the bag, but he had it in the bag, dude. And he started out the third round well, but I think he just got a little bit overzealous in his grappling exchanges. And, you can't do that with Evelev. And eventually, man, Movsar did his thing, man. And once he got into his scrambles in that third round, it was over for Aljamain. Also, I will say, a couple low IQ, fight IQ points for Aljamain. He wasted a lot of energy, if I can say that, trying to do power wrestling against Movsar. And I don't think he really had to do that. He's way more of a technical wrestler. He could have used a lot more technique, but again, he's against a guy who's 19-0, so I get it. But, Movsar goes out there and gets the win, and we'll see if they ever go ahead and give him that featherweight title shot. I know there's a little bit of a hang-up of what's going to happen with Topuria, but we'll see. How about this? How about Randy Brown goes out there with Brian Battle, and Brian Battle wins by decision? I kind of felt like Randy Brown, he kind of effed up in that third round, though. So I'm not even going to say this was a robbery or anything. I go along with Brian Battle winning, but there's definitely a world where Randy Brown could have won. You feel for Randy Brown. Brian Battle came in 4 pounds heavy. He weighed in 175, way above the 171 limit. But man, it's just sad when you see these fighters miss weight and they're willing to give up their little portion of the purse and still go out there and get the win. Because at the end of the day, all that really matters is, did you get the win? And that's how the matchmakers are going to match him next time. They're not going to match him like, oh, this guy missed weight. They're going to match him like, oh, yeah, he beat Randy Brown. So shout out to Randy Brown, who's sorry to see him take that loss after dude missed weight. But nevertheless, Brian Battle moves on. The Butcher moves on. How about Chris Weidman takes an L to Eric Anders? Eric Anders, your boy, Eric Anders. Shout out to Eric Anders. Thank God. Get Chris Weidman out of here. It's what you get. It's what you get, Chris Weidman, with your eye poking self. That's what you get. Everything that happened to you, I'm glad you got poked in the eye during the first round as well. Whatever bad happens to Chris Weidman, I like it, because I haven't liked Chris Weidman ever since he beat Anderson Silva and was a dick about it. Shout out to your boy Eric Anders for going out there and getting the win, because it's like, bro, you ruined Bruno Silva's career. He'll never be the same again after your 25 eye pokes. You know what I'm saying? And you didn't want to own up to it. You want to act like it was okay. That's why I'm glad he got poked. That's why I'm also glad he took that weird, he took that illegal knee. I'm glad he took that illegal knee. I wish Eric Anders would have hit him harder with the illegal knee. It's what Chris Weidman gets. He deserved to take that loss. So glad Eric Anders beat him. Let's move on, Eric Anders. Let's move on. How about Cody Durden with 1 round of cardio? Goes out there and takes an L to Joshua Van. I thought Cody Durden was going to have more cardio than 1 round. He takes an L. Joshua Van moves on. How about Michael Chiesa goes out there with Max Griffin? What do you want, man? Michael Chiesa went out there and did Michael Chiesa things. Boring, typical, predictable, but he did his thing. Michael Chiesa goes out there and gets a win by submission. How about Clay Guida, who just refuses to stop, goes out there and gets schooled by Chase Hooper. Young Chase Hooper schooled Clay Guida. And that's what Clay Guida gets. We sick of it, Clay Guida. You know what I'm saying? We sick of it. We sick of the hairstyle. We sick of you dyeing your hair jet black. We sick of we sick of all of it. All right? Just stop. Just stop, okay? The best thing about your fights is when your brother slaps you before you enter the octagon. Shout out to Clay Guida. He's still a legend. But Chase Hooper looked tremendous and gets the win. And then finally Kennedy Kennedy goes out there and gets the win against Lucas Brzeski. Man, Brzeski caught Kennedy with shots just like I thought he would. Kennedy's movement wasn't the best, like how you think it would be, him coming from light heavyweight up to heavyweight. So if Brzeski would have had a little mustard on those shots, mustard! If he would have had a little mustard on those shots, I think he could have knocked him out, but he didn't. And Kennedy goes out there and gets the win. Looks like, until he runs into a real heavyweight that's got some sting on the shots, he looks like he might do all right at heavyweight until he runs into a heavyweight with some sting on the shots. Nevertheless, man, that was the card. That was UFC 310. It was a really weird card, man. It didn't play out exactly how a lot of us thought it was going to play out, and a lot of the fights weren't as exciting as we thought they were going to be, but it is what it is, man. And we move on. You know what I'm saying? Moving into Kobe Covington, Buckley main event. So we'll see how it all goes down, man. I'll be right back with you with a breakdown of that card. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.